All right, so I have between $13,000 and $16,000 invested in Milwaukee Tools. Let's go over the tools that suck, tools that failed me, tools I would never buy again, and why Milwaukee pretty much leads the market in certain aspects, and why they're great. Let's get into it. All right, so I basically got into Milwaukee Tools back when they basically released their fuel line. I was doing DirecTV. I needed an impact to mount satellite dishes on roofs, sides of houses, drill holes, or stuff like that. So I was using a rigid impact and drill kit at the time. I just went and bought it, I think, Home Depot, whatever it was. And that, it was working okay, but I did do some searching, and I knew about Makita, I knew about DeWalt, and I needed an impact that had torque. And Milwaukee was coming out their new line, fuel line. It was brushless, and it had, I think, 1,600 inch-pounds of torque. The model was 2653, and I think it's just like a circa 2011. I forget how long ago this was. Maybe 9 years ago, 2012, 2013, something like that. And so I was like, that's it. I had no brand loyalty at the time. I just went by pure torque numbers, like who has the best torque for this impact, because I need this tool, but I need the most torque to drive lag bolts, and Milwaukee won it. So that was my introduction to Milwaukee. I never even really, I knew they invented the Sawzall back in the day, but I never really paid attention to Milwaukee or TTI, which TTI owns Milwaukee Rigid and Ryobi and maybe some other things too, depending on when you're watching this video. So they're all basically owned by the same company. They're all separate entities, but they're all owned by the same company. So that was my introduction into them. And since then, okay, let's get into the bad things about Milwaukee Tools, the ones that I've used. Their impacts, their triggers fail. Matter of fact, I have 4 2853s right now, and one of them is, I need to send it in because of the trigger. I've sent probably 6 or 7 of these things in. They've always been warranted, but Milwaukee's trigger, they fail. That's basically, that's the main thing that they do. Their trigger doesn't do so. There's something wrong with it, and you put the battery in, and it doesn't go. So it doesn't work. So that's why I have multiple tools. But that's the main gripe with their impacts. Now, a couple other things about Milwaukee Tools. Their M18 battery line, they invested heavily into it. That's why I like it. That's why you should probably go with it if you want. They have their battery line is not going anywhere. Like DeWalt, they had their flexible battery line. Now, granted, it's not cross compatible with their 60-volt tools, but it is cross compatible with their 20-volt tools and 18-volt tools. So that helps out. But at the same time, they got M8, your same battery that'll power a 12-inch miter saw, will power your impact, will do, pretty much. Now, granted, your performance may vary, obviously, but, that line is fantastic. That's why I have so many of their tools. They did a great job with their battery line. Now, a couple tools that I will say that aren't very good. Their M12, their 12-volt vacuums seem to not perform great. I'm not gonna say they suck because they're supposed to, but they don't perform very well. And I can contest to that as well. And also their M18 Surge impact driver. I know there's a lot of fanboys out there that like it, but it's a niche tool that costs more than the regular impact, but it's a little quieter because it's got the gear oil inside it or whatever. There's no torque. There's hardly any torque to it. So good for inside cabinetry, stuff like that. The amount of noise it reduces is not worth the lack of torque it has. But on the contrary, their M12 Surge is probably the best 12-volt tool by any brand on the market. It is fantastic. It's got great torque. It's a little quieter than usual. It blows out the regular M12 impact, not brushless, hands down. Like it's one of the best tools I own. It's great, it's compact, and it's super powerful for what it is. So not sure what, they're probably gonna come out with another gen of the Surge and make it more torquey. And I know Milwaukee's coming out with the Gen 4 impact, or if it's already out, I'm not sure. I'm not up to like the crazy, the new stuff anyway. Their Gen 1 and 2 hammer drills were great, absolutely fantastic. The Gen 2 hammer drill, I think, is their best. Their fuel line is their best. Their Gen 3 is great. It's small, but it does, if you're using it extensively, it does get really, really hot. It does. That's, I think, my main gripe with it. You can get really hot to where you don't want to touch it. So And it obviously has, thermal overload. I think it'll turn itself off, and the battery will flash, all that kind of stuff. So, but it does tend to heat up way more than Gen 2s. So keep that in mind. Milwaukee does have their MX Fuel line. I did buy into that with their concrete, their cutoff saw, their 14-inch cutoff saw. It's great. That's more of a professional grade. You're not gonna. Most of those tools cost. I think all those tools cost in the 4 figures, if not even mid 4 figures. So. There is that battery line as well. Obviously not cross compatible, but Milwaukee does have a second battery line. Great things about Milwaukee, why you should buy into it, is they own the impact market. Honestly, hands down, Snap-on can't compete. Matco, nobody can compete with Milwaukee's impact line. Now you might have Makita and DeWalt coming out with a high torque one off that might have a little more torque than Milwaukee's, but at the same time you can just upgrade to Milwaukee's 3/4 or even their 1-inch impact, and pretty much leave them in the dust if you want to. So Milwaukee's impact, if you're a mechanic, there's no reason why you need to be buying Snap-on or going with anything else than Milwaukee, because they are fantastic. They have everything you're probably going to need. Their electric ratchets are great. Even their older M12 non-brushless motors, those are still great. I mean, they're still good. So keep that in mind. They have electric torque wrenches. They own that market as far as I'm concerned. But you can see they do lack a little bit in the carpentry. They're late to market. Con with Milwaukee's, they're late to market with their carpentry tools. Their table saw was late to market. Their framing nailer was late to market. Their Gen 1 nailers in general are not that great. Lots of issues with them as well. Gen 2 are fantastic. I own all the Gen 2 nailers. They're fantastic. Gen 1, don't buy them. Just don't buy them. And if you already have them, great. If they're working for you, absolutely, fine. But they're not professional grade in my opinion. Gen 2s, absolutely. But they are a little late to market. Looking at a track saw, there's no track saw from Milwaukee. There's no, I know a coil nailer that DeWalt just released. We'll probably see that in like 5 years if you're waiting for Milwaukee. Stuff like that. But they do have some great R&D for other things, so it's a give and take. That's why I have multiple battery lines, because no one brand tool makes the best batteries or makes the best tools for everything. And none of them all have exactly what I need. So, and obviously a drywall sander, if you're looking for like their trades, they do have some great specialty tools, plus especially in the plumbing trade. But if you need drywall sanding, you're gonna have to go to a different battery line. And yeah, anyways, so that's basically what I've got for Milwaukee Tools. Should you buy them? Absolutely. If you're you're looking for a new battery line, honestly, it's either gonna be DeWalt, Milwaukee, or Makita. If you want like the most tools for the battery line, I would recommend Milwaukee over Makita, just simply because it looks like Makita is going with the new battery line of 40 volt max. So depending on what you have, this line it's pretty expensive right now. It's brand new. It does have some pretty good performance from what I've seen. I have not tested any of these tools yet, but if you're starting out right now, you're not going to go wrong with going with Milwaukee M18 fuel battery line, or even their M18 line. They got so many tools out there, and it doesn't look like they're going to be abandoning the line anytime soon. So like and subscribe, you guys. I'll see you in the next video. I appreciate it.